In Activity 7, How Big Are They?, students begin to measure the plants they have grown from seeds. Each student first measures the length of one plant and begins to make a histogram showing its growth. Students then discuss and compare the rates of growth of their plants. From the kit, you will need Activity Sheet 7, Part A, Activity Sheet 7, Part B, construction paper, planter trays with planter cups from Activity 2, plant parts chart, and a bottle of white glue. You will also need to provide sheet of plain paper and a pair of scissors. To prepare for Session 1, make a copy of Activity Sheet 7, Part A for each student and post the plant parts chart where everyone can see it. Each student will need a sheet of construction paper, a sheet of plain paper, and a pair of scissors. Each team of 4 will need their 2 planter trays with plants and access to glue. To begin Session 1, give each student a copy of Activity Sheet 7, Part A. Distribute the plants to each team. Explain to students that the stem is the thin part of the plant that holds the plant upright, and the leaves are the broader sections of the plant that grow off the stem. Show students the plant parts chart and point out the roots, stem, and leaves on both the corn and the bean plant illustrations. And then ask students to identify the stems and leaves on their plants. Next, ask students, how could you figure out how much your plants grow from day to day? Students will probably suggest that they could measure the plants somehow. To demonstrate how to measure the plants, cut a 2.5 centimeter strip from a sheet of plain paper. With the bottom of the paper strip touching the soil, gently stretch the plant up straight and mark the plant height on the strip. Cut the strip where you mark it. Give each student a sheet of construction paper, a sheet of plain paper, and a pair of scissors. Have each student write his or her name at the top of the sheet of construction paper and cut their plain paper into strips. Depending on the level of your students, you may wish to cut the strips ahead of time. Tell each student to measure the height of the tallest plant in his or her planter cup and then glue the paper strip onto the sheet of construction paper. Label it number 1 to mark the first measurement. You may want to have students work in pairs to accomplish this more easily. Instruct each student to draw a picture of the plant he or she measured on Part A of the activity sheet. Student drawings should show the correct number, placement, and relative size of all plant parts. Next, have students place their planter cups back in the trays and return them to their place in the classroom. Ask students questions such as, what do you think will happen to your plants? And, how long do you think your next strip of paper will be? Students will probably understand that their plant will grow taller, and therefore their next paper strip should be longer. At the end of Session 1, collect the construction paper graphs and save the remaining plain paper strips for use in continuing observation sessions and Session 2. Every 2 days, have students measure their plants and glue their paper strips onto their construction paper, working from left to right across the graph. Record the number of the day on the strip. To prepare for Session 2, make a copy of Activity Sheet 7, Part B, for each student. Each student will also need the construction paper graph from Session 1, a strip of plain paper, a pair of scissors, and glue. Each team of 4 will need its 2 planter trays with plants. To begin Session 2, give each student a copy of Activity Sheet 7, Part B, and his or her plant. Tell students to draw another picture of the same plant they have been observing. When they have finished drawing, distribute their copies of Activity Sheet 7, Part A, and ask them to compare their 2 drawings. They should note that their plant has grown and shown longer stems and more leaves. Next, distribute the graphs, paper strips, scissors, and glue. Have them measure their plants and add 1 final strip to each of their graphs. When all students have finished, discuss what they have learned about their plant's growth. If any students say their plants did not grow, have them show the class their construction paper graphs and see if the class agrees with them. Continue the discussion by asking, did your plant grow the same amount between each measurement? Students should note that the plants likely grew in spurts. Explain to the class that not all plants grow evenly, and that changes in watering patterns, temperature, or disease will also affect their growth rate. Encourage students to consider possible reasons for why their plants are growing as they are. Next, have students look at the class garden and compare the size of the seed to the size of the plant in each plot. Ask students, can you tell from the size of the seed how big the plant will get? Lead students to understand that the size of the plants is not related to the size of their seeds. Tell students that some small seeds, such as radish and grass seeds, grow into small plants, but other small seeds, such as tomato seeds, can grow into quite large plants. Therefore, we cannot judge how big a plant will be from the size of its seed. To conclude the activity, return the plants to their place in the classroom for use in other activities. Return the bottle of glue to the kit. Make sure to leave the plant parts chart posted. You may also want to display student bar graphs on a bulletin board. For science background, reinforcement activities, curriculum connections, and information about the Delta Science readers, please consult your DSM Teacher's Guide.